Hi, this is Shayna Hiller from Build Your Personal Yoga Business. And today I'd like to share with you some phrases and words that I would recommend avoiding while teaching yoga. Now, I didn't say use it never, because chances are you may find that you use these words or these phrases sometimes, and it's okay. It's really about bringing awareness to the subtleties behind your teaching and noticing if you're saying something just because you want to fill the silence and keep talking, or perhaps it would be helpful to not say something and just have the silence so that your students can receive your cueing and your guidance in a much more effective way. So before I get to those phrases and those words, I want to share that something you may or may not know about me is that even though I've been teaching yoga for nearly 20 years, wow, does that make me old? I still am a student. I still take yoga classes, and that's actually how I end up feeling into and hearing how yoga teachers are guiding classes. And that's what gives me the inspiration to say, hey, have you ever thought about changing this or saying this in a different way? Because I know firsthand how something lands in my body. And it's so important that our language is resonating with our students in a very direct way, because as you probably know, language is very powerful. And with yoga guidance, we want to be as precise as possible so that our students can follow our guidance with their eyes almost closed. So, the first phrase that I would recommend avoiding or changing is, I want you to. Yes, it's subtle, and you may not even notice that you're using this phrase when you're teaching yoga. So for example, I want you to step your right foot forward. I want you to go into downward facing dog. I want you to go into child's pose. It's not about you. So even though you may want them to do that, my suggestion would be take out I want you to, literally just cut and delete that, and start with what you would have said next. Child's pose. Step your right foot forward into a lunge. Press back into downward facing dog. So this is something where you've got to kind of be that witness. It's like a meditation while you're teaching yoga. Be the witness of, am I saying I want you to? Right? So again, it's not necessarily about what you want them to do, even though you might not consciously think, well, I'm not saying it for that reason, but those words are not needed. Similar along the same lines is let's. So starting a cue or starting any type of guidance or teaching with let's. Let's step our right foot forward. Let's lay in Shavasana. Let's go into downward facing dog. Let's curl our toes and go into a back bend, whatever it may be. The reason for that is that you're categorizing the entire group, right? Let's do this together. Now, chances are that certain students may need to modify certain postures and they may not be able to do the full version. And on a more nuanced level, when your student is receiving the term let's, right? Yes, it's a community, assuming that you're teaching in a group class, it's a community experience. However, what really lands so much more deeply is when you imagine that you are speaking to just one student. Step your right foot forward, as opposed to let's step our right foot forward. Let's extend our arms overhead. Let's hinge at the hips and fold forward. Again, can you remove the word let's and start with the actual cue? Step your right foot forward. So that also goes into using the word your versus our. Right? Again, imagine that you are speaking to just one person when you teach, even if you are teaching to a group, to a class, because your student is coming and they're receiving your guidance. And even if you're in a group, it's going to land so much deeply as if you are talking just to that person. And then you can, of course, offer modifications. Step your right foot forward into a lunge. Option to drop your back knee and modify the posture if needed. But it's very, very direct, and it's very, very geared just toward your student, as opposed to speaking to a group. Right? You're still teaching to a group, but you're speaking directly, individually to one student. And just notice how it feels in your body and your experience of teaching, and notice the response and the reaction that you get from your students. Again, these are just ideas to try on. I'm not claiming that any of this is right versus wrong. These are nuances. These are very, very subtle tips that, especially if you have been teaching for some time, or if you haven't and you're getting stuck on, you feel like you're having extra words when you're teaching, or you're fumbling or stumbling on your words, or you find it difficult to breathe while you're teaching, right? It's a practice, not just for our students, but also for us to pay attention to, is this even necessary, and how does it feel to receive this exact guidance? So I want you to throw it in the trash. Let's see if you can cut and delete that and just again start with, and do your best to transition or to shift from our to your, right? Instead of we're going to do our sun salutations, your sun salutation, your foot, your leg, your arms reaching. Okay? So those are more so for the phrases, the subtle phrases, and how you would initiate a cue. This is a little bit in a different category, but this is actually the main word that I wanted to talk about today. But of course, once I started thinking about this, I'm like, well, I should also probably mention to them about the let's and the I want you to, because again, I've been hearing this in a lot of the classes that I've been taking. And again, it's not wrong or bad. It just may amplify your teaching to pay attention and to make some little shifts. So the other one is the word squeeze. Now, this may be a personal preference, but if yoga is about finding this balance between sthira and sukham, between effort and ease, when I hear the word squeeze, my body goes into tension and strain. Now, what if, for example, you are guiding a posture where people are interlacing their fingers behind their back and doing a forward fold, and you want them to draw their shoulders toward each other, right? That's one option of an alternative cue. Draw the shoulders toward each other, as opposed to squeeze your shoulders together, which is not only going to potentially bring up a feeling of tension or strain in the body, but it's really not the action that we want to be doing anyway. We want to really be guiding the correct muscular engagement, as opposed to just the word squeeze. The word squeeze creates resistance in the body and a feeling of stagnation and strain. So some alternatives for the word squeeze, as mentioned, are draw. For example, if you want people to draw their shoulders together in a posture, it's a subtle draw. Or the word firm. Firm your hips toward the midline, as opposed to squeeze your butt, which, believe it or not, I've also heard in yoga classes. It's just not as articulate, and it's not as graceful as what we're actually trying to convey and what we're trying to guide. So hugging in toward the midline, hugging, firming, drawing them toward each other, engaging the muscles. You can even literally cue the word engage as opposed to squeeze. So I encourage you to think of, you can go to the little thesaurus.com and look up some synonyms for the word squeeze and start to get curious about the cues that you're giving, because yoga is different than a fitness class. Yes, of course, we're also working out, we're getting a beautiful physical practice in, but these words of squeeze, squeeze your butt, squeeze your shoulders, like I look at people's faces sometimes who are practicing and they're squeezing their face. Right? So we really want to be very, very sensitive to how our students who may not know the proper alignment yet or the proper engagement, how they're actually performing the postures. And I just feel that the word squeeze is not necessary. And mind you, I say it often and I witness myself say it, and I'm like, all right, next time I'm going to say something different. So this is just food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments about this. And also if you have any other alternatives for the word squeeze, or any other subtle verbal cues or phrases that either you're trying to avoid or that you're adding, or anything that has evolved for you in your experience teaching. Because I mean, let's all serve each other. Let's all support each other in evolving and growing our teaching in all of the ways. So I hope that you gained value from this video and that you feel inspired to go out there and to witness yourself teaching and notice those little habits, those little ruts that we get into. I've gotten into them too. It's kind of like on repeat sometimes. and explore new words. Literally, go to the thesaurus and get excited about teaching in a new way and creating that dynamic nature for yourself to keep things spicy and to keep things inspiring and alive for you. And of course, to inspire your students and to continue to guide them in a safe, simple, and direct way. Any other questions that you have, feel free to add them below in the comments section. Subscribe somewhere around here if you haven't already. Check out the links in the bio. I have a lot of beautiful offers as well as retreats coming up, one-on-one coaching in building your yoga and wellness business in a harmonious, graceful, and very, very prosperous way, because you deserve it and it's all possible. Anyway, love to all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Namaste for now. Mwah.